hello, and welcome to another Tech PD on Wednesday afternoon. Hope everybody has a good day. Today we're going to talk, I was in a class with sixth graders, and we were talking about research, internet research. And so I did a little write-up, and we went over that, and we were covering that for their projects. And I realized that's probably something that we can share district-wide, not only for us as educators, but also tips and tricks that we can give to our students, right? Things that we can share with them and the best way to find that information. And so I have a little slideshow. We'll throw that in the chat, so you'll have that access to that if you want to follow along. The idea will be that you'll be able to use this if you want to, or there'll be bits and pieces that you can use going forward. So let me do a quick screen share here. There we go. So we're going to be talking research and in the age of the internet, how that looks like. One of the stories I've mentioned to the students is, there was a time when you and I, if we were asked to do a report on a volcano or on dinosaurs or whatever it is, we'd go down to the library, and that would be kind of the canonical source of all knowledge. And we didn't have to worry too much about there being a lot of false or fake information on there because it had already been vetted, right? Somebody already taken done the work of looking at the books and deciding these ones weren't worth putting in there, but these ones are. We only have a limited amount of space. So even the fact of physically printing out the book, the money that would go into that was a self-selecting component as well, right? Yes, of course, there are certain things that could be printed out in books that weren't accurate, but generally speaking, it took a lot of time and money and dead trees to fill that library. So we didn't have to worry quite as much as we do now. Now, when somebody searches for something, there could be two websites. One could be, from an organization that's fully funded and has all kinds of money for, to make it look really great, right next to another website that is just a guy in his basement, right? So there's no delineation there on the internet except for what we bring with us. So we're going to look at that, some ways to kind of narrow down our searches and hopefully kind of help our students be a little bit more internet savvy as far as finding that information. So yes, there are many different sources out there, but we're just going to look at Google today only because that's probably where most of our kids are going, right? If we're asking them to do a report on something, they're probably going to go to Google, type it in, find the first page, and off they go. There are other search engines. There are other, databases we can use, and we can talk about some of those. The library, State Main Library actually has resources specifically for, national or international databases that kids can use that kind of limit that search again. But we also want to teach kids about what they're going to do in the real world. And most of us, if we're just looking for something, we're just going to go to Google, search for it, and there it is. And so the way that Google works, and this has changed a little bit over time, but generally speaking, the way that it works is if you search for something, it'll throw up the website. As far as the order of the list goes, is if there are many other websites that link to it. So one of the examples I gave to the kids the other day, if you're searching for Rome, it's more likely that Rome, Italy is going to come up before Rome, Maine, right? Because more other websites have linked to, the idea of Rome, Italy, or the location or whatever information regarding it, more so around the world than Rome, Maine. Now, there are other different, that's not the only reason why it works now. There are other factors they put into place of why, they might rank one thing up another above another. It's not simply just who's linked to it, but that's a big one. So if we're just going to go to Google here, and we'll look at some of the other types of things that we can use to help us search. Generally speaking, less is more. So rather than something like when do the Carolina Panthers play next, we could just put in Carolina Panthers. So we're going to use this as a example. Just because we're not necessarily, let's say we're not looking for the Carolina Panthers, we're looking for something else, but we're trying to narrow our search down to exclude things we don't want. So I'll just put in Carolina Panthers. Of course, here's football stuff that would come up as you imagine it would. But let's say I'm not looking for that. So if I go back to here to look at other useful operators, the quotes around something will give you specifically that word or words will specifically be in the search, right? Or the minus will exclude something. So let's say I want a Carolina Panthers, but I actually don't want the football team. I want a panther. I want an actual cat, right? So let me get rid of this. I'm going to say panther here, but I'm going to put a minus in front of it. So it's going to say, I'm looking for panther minus Carolina. So that's going to not appear. It's going to do everything but that. So if I search, I'll start finding other things. So here's a Wikipedia article about Panther. This is a movie, it looks like. Here's some Black Panther websites for the movie Black Panther. And so again, let's say I'm not interested in that. I'm not looking for movies. I'm looking for specifically for the cat. So I might say, I'm going to put quotes around this and say cat. I've got Panther as my search term, minus Carolina, so I'm not going to get that. And then I have quotes around that. So this should be, cat focused type of things. There we go. Now I'm getting what I'm really looking for. So these are just little tips to kind of narrow your searches and kind of help us so it's not quite so broad. And of course, you can put other things in there as well. Across the top, as we know, we've got all, which is going to search everything, but I also can search just by images. So say I'm just looking for the cats here. If I want to do some of the other tools that I can use in my image search, right here under tools, I can look in here. So here's by size. If you ever had an image, let's say I'm trying to add something to a Google slideshow and I put the picture in there and then I stretch it out and it really looks awful. It might just mean the original image is really tiny. So if I want to have a larger image, make sure it's big enough, I can click on here in size and say large, and I want to make sure it's okay. So these are going to be really, really big ones, really big. The size, the resolution will be better. Color, just like it sounds like. Let's say I want, let's see, we're going to do red. I don't know what's going to come up here. So these are Panthers that have red in the actual image. Most of them obviously are black, but you can choose by color if you needed to. We'll see blue. We'll see what comes up. Yeah, see like blue backgrounds here. Type. So if I want, let's say I don't want just these are photos mostly here of Panthers. Clip art, just like it sounds like, these are going to be like drawings, hand drawings. A lot of them are kind of like stickers that if you use these, they'll have transparency and alpha channel around them. So you'll be able to drag them in. Line drawing, just like it sounds like as well, it's going to be just hand drawn usually or single line drawings, maybe kind of coloring book type style. And then finally, if you're looking for movement, under here, go to GIF, and you'll see these will be moving images. So if I click on one of these, give it a second here. This one's not moving. There we go. So this was actually just pictures, but let's see if I can find one that looks like it's actually moving. There you go. So that's an animated GIF. So it acts as a picture. I could drag that into my Google slideshow or whatever, and it would still be moving. Some of you may have noticed, if you're looking at the slideshow that's going around the high school level, you'll see we've been taking, some of our students have been taking videos from the channel, taking a little sliver of them, a little 5-6 second cut of them, and turning it into an animated GIF. That's why if you're, as it's scrolling through, you'll see maybe one of the basketball players, driving in for a layup or shooting a three or something. We're kind of taking a video and turning a little piece of it into a GIF. Last week, we talked about a couple tools that will help you do this if you're interested. Unscreen is one that will let you take a video just like we have right now, and you can put that in there and it'll give you transparency around it. Another one is gifs.com, which was kind of the same thing. You can add a video or like a YouTube link and take a little piece out of it. All right, I'm going to jump back here under all, so I'm looking at everything. So let's say I'm looking for Panthers. Let's see, we'll do Carolina again, just because this will be a little bit more pertinent. So let's say we're back to football here for a second. But let's say I'm interested in finding something, but I don't want it just anytime. I want it more recent, right? So right here under tools, under my general search, I can search anytime. Let me zoom in a little bit so you can see that. So right up here, I can click anytime. So maybe I want it within the last month or the last week or the last whatever. So here's some information that happened within the last month, January 22nd. Depending on what your needs are, that kind of helps. Okay, so maybe I want something a year ago. I want something within the last week or day or whatever. Also, all results verbatim. And so if you want to make sure that the term Carolina Panther specifically appears in that search, you would just put verbatim. This is like as if you put quotes around it. Same idea, basically. All right, let's clear those out. Maps, obviously, we've used map before. Images, news, just like it sounds like, it's going to search through news for this. More, I can look for books, videos, all that kind of thing. We do have Safe Search turned on by default. And so anybody using a school laptop, if they're using a Chromebook or students use a Chromebook, I'm not sure actually they even have the option of turning it off. I don't believe so. Safe Search just gives you an additional layer of so hopefully inappropriate images won't pop through, that kind of thing. And so Google does a pretty good job of that, of scanning for things that shouldn't be on there and just basically ignoring them. But that's just something that you can just turn on and leave on. You don't really need to turn on for any reason. So we talked about advanced search, down by time, images we've done, another kind of cool, it's by color, another cool example here. And so some of you may have seen this. So if I search for building shaped like a basket, put images here. So if I have an image like this and I want to search by it now, actually this happened a couple of weeks ago. Mary sent a few of us an email with an image that had a logo on it, and she kind of wanted to know where that logo came from. So I believe Brian Hanish did this. He did a reverse image search, and what that means is you can take an image like this, you can drag it onto where you're searching for images, and it will kind of do a reverse image search to see where else you can find it. So this one, in this case, it's the Longaberger Company, and it finds all kinds of different versions on there. How they do this, you might be like, well, how can they do that? How can they take a reverse image and go there? Anytime that you've done, you've seen that check that comes up, say, oh, prove you're not a robot, right? Are you really a person? Are you really human? And you get those, like that grid of icons, and it says, find the bridge, or find the motorcycle, or the stairs, or whatever it is. Anybody who's using that are teaching the computer, basically teaching machine learning how to discern between a bridge and a road, or a motorcycle and a car, or a bus and a taxi, or whatever it is that we're determining. We're giving different variations of the same thing to kind of train it into what's using how it works, so that it's a better version. So again, no person is looking at these, but it's kind of computer algorithms is determining these. Another good example of this that happened a few years back. At one point, Google offered this service called Google 411, which was basically like regular 411, where you would search for something on the phone, right? You'd call 411, you'd say, hey, what's the number of Pizza Hut? And then a person would give you, give that information, find you the number, and they'd give it to you. That cost money. Well, for a while, Google was giving that away for free as a service. What they were doing was, what the trade-off was, is they were basically taking all the phonemes, the way we were saying those words as a population, and they were training the system. So if I said, what's the number for Pizza Hut? And I received the number, and it was accurate because I called it, I'm basically training. It's like, yes, this is how me and Central Maine says the word Pizza Hut, where somebody else in a different state or maybe a different country would say the same word. So they're training the reason why now when you talk to Google or Alexa or Siri or any of those type of services, they've been trained using those phonemes to be able to be a little bit smarter or hopefully more accurate. We're doing the same thing here. When you're looking at these photos and you get that kind of that image that pops up to ask you to search for, is this a bridge or a motorcycle or whatever, that's what we're doing. All right, a couple other searches. Here's the voice search, as I mentioned, and that's built right in. So if you have, students have a Chromebook, or if they just want to ask rather than having to type it in, that's another option right there. It is funny because it does get, it can get tricky. The way that you order things makes a difference. Another tool that we don't think of a lot, but is super helpful, is the Control F. If I go to, let's say I go to a website, I'll search for Wikipedia, and I'll say Carolina Panthers again. Here's Carolina Panthers. Here's my article. Okay, so that popped up. Cool. Now, when I search Google, it's going to search the link to this web page itself, but it's not going to search within the web page, right? So if I'm looking for something specific, Control F, which is usually, I'm not sure any websites that wouldn't allow this, but 99% of the websites you go to, or if you're looking for information, would go to a website like this. This little window will pop up, and I could search, let's say I search for football in this case, or whatever you're looking for inside of the page itself. Control F will pop this up, and now I can see, and I can kind of zoom down and look through the actual page itself. So this is something that's really important for our kids to know, because it might bring them to the page, but it's not going to bring them to the information inside of that page. And so that's really useful, just another kind of tool to have. Words matter, right? So like we mentioned earlier, less is more. So if you're searching for who or the who or a who, whatever, order matters. If I say Panthers, Carolina versus Carolina Panthers, that might come up different information. Capitalization does not matter. They pretty much ignore that, just because I don't know if you've ever done a survey with your kids or asked them to put information in there. Sadly, kids rarely capitalize. Students really capitalize, period, even on their own names. So that's something that we kind of have to, remind them to do. And then usually punctuation doesn't matter. There are a couple of exceptions to this, like I mentioned, a minus or a quote. It does make a difference, but normal punctuation doesn't take or add or take away from it. So I'm just going to pull up a quick quiz here. If you're welcome to join along if you want to, but this is some questions that we asked the students to do some research. Okay, so this was an open internet quiz. This was just kind of for fun, but it's kind of to show the different types of questions and how you might search online to find this information and how you might do it appropriately or not. So if you want to follow along, again, I'll throw this right in the chat, bit.ly/take-quiz. There you go. So I got my questions here. What's your name? Now, all the students were pretty good about putting their name in here, but in a situation like this, it's not automatically selecting my name, so I can type anything I want. I can say, I am Matt Brown today. I think I saw Matt on there, so I'm going to be you today. In this situation, nobody can stop you, right? It's just an open-ended questionnaire. So the reason why we do this with students is we want to talk about like the information you're finding in there. Who can put that up there? Literally anyone, for good or bad, okay? So if a website comes up, because the link is there, it has the same validity as the one right below it. Now, you and I know if we find information from certain, sources, like, oh, that's from National Geographic, it's probably pretty good. Oh, that's from the CDC right now, right? So that might be better than, Joe Blow's website that he has information on there, right? So the sources matter. One of the things we were looking at yesterday in the 6th grade class was volcanoes. So I was looking at Hawaii volcanoes. They're doing information about that. But when we searched for that, the first link that came up here, okay, so right here, so here's an information about Hawaiian volcanoes. They're doing, researching tectonic plates and natural disasters and that kind of stuff. Right here, nps.gov, right? So that .gov, that extension right there tells me that's a government website. It's probably more reputable than some, joeblow.com or whatever, something that's going to just be some person talking about volcanoes. So these are the types of things that, you and I know, National Geographic might be more reputable than something else, but students, for them, usually it's just a link, right? Oh, okay, it's the first one that pops up. So we want to kind of make sure that they understand what they're looking for. How many siblings do you have? Okay, so this, again, I can, be honest here. I do have 5 siblings, but one student said, oh, Mr. Kelly, I have more than 10. Okay, so in this selection only lets you have 0 to 10. We also want to talk about the fact that the questions themselves might bias the answers they receive, right? So if your offering is only 0 to 10, you're not going to get any families that have more than 10 siblings for whatever reason, or larger families. Or maybe I only put on there 1 to 5 or 1 to 3 or something like that. Like I could have chose whatever number scale I wanted to. So these are factors, data collection coming in versus data collection coming out. It's only as good as what the information you're going to get. What's the best flavor of ice cream? So I'll just choose vanilla here for the first. And again, I could type in other and put anything I want. Now, I asked for best flavor, which obviously is an opinion. If I'd asked what is the most popular flavor, that can be a research data fact, right? I could go find out what is the most popular flavor by a quart sold or something like that, gallon sold around the country or the state or the world or whatever. So discussing the difference between a fact, what is the most popular versus what is the best. For you, the best might be chocolate, and yet the most popular might be vanilla or whatever. How many planets are there in the solar system? Okay, so that's a good one. I'm going to put down, I'll say 8. We'll talk about that one more in a minute. What's the capital of Canada? So this is where I started to get into students. Again, this is an open internet quiz. So they could just copy and paste. They just go to Google, copy and paste their answer in there. Ottawa came up first. Okay, so that looks about right. So they typed it in there. And we'll do the next one. What does the Northwest Pacific tree octopus eat? So we'll copy that. We'll just paste that right into Google. Let's see here, save the Northwest Pacific octopus. So if I just look down through somewhere in here, right here. So this might they do the control F, or they might find, search for what it's going to eat. But it eats small vertebrae, frogs, rodents, or an egg or something like that. So I'm just going to copy and paste that in here. Okay. Image, what is in the image? A duck or a rabbit? So I think that looks more like a duck. So we'll choose duck here. Okay, so that gets the quiz, and you of course get the results. Now let's go look at it question by question. Again, what's your name could be anything, so it's important to note that the information coming in, garbage in, garbage out, right? If you just open-ended question, you could be getting anything. How many siblings do you have? Again, the answer selection influences the information that you collect, right? There's a direct correlation. If I only ask, for, let's say I only put, 1 to 5 siblings, then there might be a lot of different districts or different schools that have, larger families that wouldn't be represented. Best flavor ice cream, again, as a opinion versus fact, how that works and what the differences they are. How many planets are there in the solar system? So this is a good example of the kids. Now, most of our students now are middle school or younger, only know a world where there were 8 planets in the solar system. You and I most likely have known a world where when we were their same age, were 9 planets, right? So what changed? Well, basically the technology changed. The technology improved. So in our lifetimes, we were able to see more examples of bodies out there beyond Neptune that were about the same size or maybe even a little bit bigger or smaller than Pluto. And so what changed was the definition itself is if we had to say, yes, we're going to allow Pluto to still be a planet, there were about 90 other objects beyond Neptune that would then qualify as a planet as well. So we'd go from 9 to 90 or 91, I think it was. So instead of doing that, they kicked Pluto out of the Planet Club. Now, we may feel very strongly about this, but that's the kind of thing where technology changes, and therefore something that is considered a fact today, if there's more information that comes in, it might get changed across the board. This is also a good example where, if you go down to the library right now, anything within the last couple of years that's anything older than that, if I grab a book and talk about, the planets, it may very well still have Pluto as a planet. So we kind of talk about the pros and cons of, yes, it may be more reliable in some instances, but, it may not have the most up-to-date information. I also noticed I said in our solar system, if I just asked how many planets are there, period, that answer would actually now be in the hundreds or many hundreds. They found, again, the technology's improved, or they discovered, or however you want to explain it, many extrasolar planets. So these are planets around other stars beyond our galaxy, or beyond, not a galaxy, but beyond our solar system. And the reason why that's so important is, again, this is technology when you and I were in middle school or so. That was like the holy grail, to find a planet beyond our solar system. Now I won't say it's commonplace, but it's certainly, the technology's improved in such a way that it's certainly more able to happen. Capital of Canada, seems like a straightforward one. Ottawa, sure. It is worth mentioning, though, that even now there are some places around the world, if you have, like, maybe there's a border that's disputed between, 2 countries. For a while, for a good example of this was, the Ukraine with Russia, right? Like, Google and Apple and some of these services that we just go to for maps, and we assume, yeah, that's the way it is because that's what it looks like. They were getting pressure from both countries to change the lines. So again, just like everything, maps can be considered, yes, they're factual, but there's a political element to them too, kind of exploring that. Finally, what does the Northwest Pacific tree octopus eat? I copied and pasted. It said rodents and eggs and that kind of stuff. Of course, the real question is this real? Now, when we did this yesterday with the 6th graders across the board, they all basically said, they just came to the website here, copied and pasted. This is a great tool or great website that's supposed to look accurate, look real. Of course, this is totally made up. But when students go there, if they search for this, the first link, for some reason, gives you some weird page that's not found. So I'm not sure why this comes up first. But regardless, the second one brings you right to that website. And if you start scrolling down, you'll actually, even third or fourth one, you'll see, here's the Wikipedia article about it. It says right at the top, the Pacific Northwest tree octopus is an internet hoax created in 1998 by a humorous writer, blah, 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 whatever. So again, if they did any cursory research at all, they would realize that they just went to the first link and it's not real. But students, as they are, usually just going to go right to the first link that comes up and just copy and paste, and they're done. I finished, right? I answered the question without those critical thinking skills. And so not that we're trying to trick them per se, but we really need them to be on their guard or really pay attention to the source of their information. If you look at a website like this, it looks great, right? It looks very accurate. It looks really cool. You come down, there's pictures. There's actually some videos. If I come in here, I can find some facts. You can find some videos here. And so it looks very, very authentic on purpose, obviously, but they never even question the fact that could this be real or not. And finally, who's in the image? No right or wrong answer here. It would be either one, right? If you, depending which perspective you're looking at it. However, it is worth mentioning that it's not all facts are simply a case of, well, I look at it this way, you look at it this way, and we're both equally valid. That image specifically was created to represent both a duck and a rabbit. However, if I was, there's another example that goes around the internet you might have seen that has, the same image from true perspective. It's either a 6 or a 9, depending which way you're looking at it. Well, that was originally created, that number, for a certain thing. So it was either created as a 6 or created as a 9 for whatever purpose it was for. So it is make a difference, not just, all things are being equal on the internet, of course. So some of the rules we want the kids to think about, looking at it critically. What does that mean? That means thinking about what the information they're actually looking for, double checking the source, seeing who else is reporting. You generally want at least 3 different sources not referencing each other. So if I get 3 sources that all represent the same Wikipedia article, that's problematic. Who else is reporting on it? They have to examine themselves. Don't take pictures or images at face value. And honestly, we're getting to a place, or we are at a place now, where you can't take videos at face value either. It's more and more easy to doctor videos so they look like what you might want them to. That's happened a lot. Check out that it sounds right. Again, if you don't question whether or not there is a tree octopus, you say, oh, it must be, because my teacher asked me to look for it. You really need to kind of do that critical thinking yourself. This is not just on our students or us. This happens to the best of them. So this story came out a few years ago. Apple creates a new screw. Totally false, totally made up. However, big names, Gizmodo, NBC, Public Radio International, ran with the story. They all published it as a real one. Well, why? Well, if you're looking online, it's usually whoever gets first. Whoever's the first with that story gets the most clicks, and click equals money, right? Advertising and so forth. So as soon as somebody came up with it, they all just, oh, well, if NBC ran with it, it must be true. Never questioning, what the actual story was. And these are people that do this for a living. So it's really difficult for our kids sometimes to be able to kind of narrow that down. So there's some ways that we can help them. One really easy way, if I go to google.com, if you go to google.com/CSE, and that stands for Custom Search Engine. And what that does is you, as a creator, you as a teacher, you can create your own custom search engine. What that means, that uses Google, but you'll limit the number of websites that it searches. So for example, if I'm looking for that animal search that I mentioned earlier, I want them to go find about panthers or cats or whatever I'm looking for. I might click on animal search here. I can choose what addresses the students would see. So for example, it narrows it down by kids, National Geographic, and si.edu/kids. So if I wanted a younger grade level, maybe let's say 4th grade or under, to not just search the web for their animal, but search specific websites, I can build my own custom search engine. And then it's going to look something like this. And so if I search for panthers, it's only going to come up from those websites. So it's not going to be the whole world. It's just going to be this. This web address, this search can be linked from your Google Classroom or can be embedded into a Google website. It's a pretty cool tool. It's not super hard to use. You can, like I said, you just add sites here. It looks kind of complicated here, but it's not too bad. And this will provide you, at the very bottom, will provide you a link directly to your address right here, public URL. So if I click on that, if I copy that link, this is the link I could give to students or embed somewhere, and they would search here and they would find just what you're looking for. So that link, I think I have it right. So there, right here, google.com/CSE custom search engine. And again, you can embed that into your Google site if you want to, or just put a link to that. Hey, we're studying volcanoes this week or this month, this unit. So we want to just narrow it down by just volcano things. Now, upper level, middle school, certainly high school, I don't think this is super appropriate, because at the high school level, certainly they need to realize, not everyone's going to build them a custom search engine for them. So they need to be able to search all the information that's out there and kind of find it on their own and use those same skills that we've been working on. So I think with that, right on the button, right up to 1:30. So that's it. That's good timing. Thank everybody for coming. Next week, we will talk about a tool called Flippity.net. We'll kind of cover that a little bit. And any other questions that come in during the week, please feel free to throw them in there. Thank you all for coming, and I will see you guys next week.